Okay,
Oh, I see. I didn't see the most recent one you would have sent, probably.
I
We
saw
should
it.
record names and things.
There are three of them, I think, but at least two.
I
So
was
you're reading then. One of them mentions you, David. The last one mentions you. Can you speak, or if you're not on mute, or if you're also, if you, your image is showing,
I can
could
speak,
you
yes.
raise your hand for me, Chris, or speak to let me know if you've read the email called Denoter?
I'm just looking at it right now.
Mhm.
So too am I.
I read it.
As given. Order for me to maintain flow. I have paper and pen at the ready, but it's always good to have more than one person writing things down. Oh, great. Thanks, Allison.
I'm not sure based on the 2008, based on the Angel Conference at the Brooks House that you should do that, Kathleen.
I beg your pardon. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure you should be the one based on my experience at the Brooks House. Because when I was getting rapid fire stuff about angels at the Brooks House, you were writing it down, but a lot was missed.
Okay.
Because you're so emotionally connected with it all. And
Okay.
I need somebody who considers themselves sharp, maybe even non-emotive.
Okay, that's fine. I'll probably be writing things down anyway, but I'd be rather not have it then as the official.
It will be me and
let's
Glenn.
agree that, okay. Let's just agree that if no one arises, if the situation arises, I'll just call out a person and you will say not me or whatever. All right. If we were to start with the concept that the chairs were in control here, would it be Allison or Glenn that would start?
Glenn will start and then I'll follow.
Okay.
Is that what you want, God? Let's have a prayer, everybody. Heavenly God, I don't want you to open the prayer, Chris. It should be a woman who opens the prayer. What Chris wants to say to me is, you know, are you happy to begin like this, which is fine, but I actually don't want to receive the prayer from a man. Is there a woman who would like to pray and ask about how to commence this? Okay, you'll need to unmute.
Hey, our dear, precious Heavenly Mother, Father, God, always present, always careful with us. And we pray that we can all be attentive today to the historical meeting that will proceed. And we also ask, please, to keep in mind the brokenhearted parents of Israel that we have here too. If that can be considered at all during this meeting, I'd really appreciate it. I pray that all of us can be alert, awake, and not distracted. I pray in my name, Jerome's name, Aju.
I want to go outside.
You all.
So what's the role of God, Chairman Straight, in supporting her prayer that you would not be distracted? Heavenly Parent, what is the role of God regarding distraction?
The role of God regarding distraction. Well, to help manage the spirit world around us that may be intruding on the thoughts and hearts of the group that's here.
Okay, well, I'll respond to you as a parent, God, that it might not only be the spirit world that distracts you. So could you consider that in your response to me, please? And you can feel free, if you're searching for an answer, to consult women and men in the group.
Yes, Allison, would you like to add? And I'd ask Blondine to please mute yourself.
So I would just say that God's will would be, it would be helpful if God just keeps things moving so that we don't get distracted, so that we have to pay attention. And God should let us
Okay.
know how she's feeling. If she's feeling like,
Thank you. As a mother, if I do that, it just means that you won't see me chopping the carrots in the kitchen or putting the celery in the blender for a healthy drink. You'll just drink it. And just assume that you've been served by your mother. As a father, if I do it, you will come back to me and say, well, why didn't you give me the opportunity to do that myself? Why didn't you give me the opportunity to be present? Before I say anything more, can someone catch Kathy up to speed with what you saw happening so far in the Zoom?
Allison?
Allison?
we're just sort of doing preliminaries, trying to figure out God's will and what's going on. And Jeannie prayed, and we're waiting for Glenn's opening statement.
Okay, well, I'm pretty concerned, Heavenly Parent, that if we rush through what has been prepared, what we will miss is the traditional value of the unification experience, which is that people maintain a healthy, happy relationship with God, and they have a clear idea of their portion of responsibility, and they also use their ability in the physical world when they inhale and exhale to use their body and their person to capture new information, glean new experience, and come to understand what God wants. So here's a case where the world had a breakthrough, and the fact that someone was using their ability to inhale and exhale was used for advantage and purpose for what unification is called the providence. This is the woman called Ruth, who lay at Boaz's feet. If she had just followed the spirit world and just united with Boaz for marriage and procreation, she would not have had an incredible experience with God. She wouldn't have had knowledge of God, and she also wouldn't have really been opened up emotionally, spiritually, and intuitively to understand the beauty of her husband. And so it is the fact that she did open up to God and she did see the beauty of her husband, which allows her lineage to be there in Jesus's lineage. And it allows for this whole incredible thing Christians call the love of God to be expressed. All of that comes from Ruth. So if she had rushed forward because something was going to commence without maintaining a relationship with God and putting everything else away and just figuring out who she was and using her person, she would have missed the opportunity to inherit some of the incredible feminine love of God that flowed from me to her and then helped produce Jesus, which helped produce what Christians unificationists called Jews, and to some extent spiritual salvation. This would have meant that the expectation around a second coming would have been much more closer to Mosaic law than to anything that Jesus presented. So we might be going for not only a second Messiah, but a third Messiah. And that's because in the early commencement of the work of God, we missed the inclusion of all that feminine energy. But that's because Ruth herself, as an individual person, had her own personal relationship with God, which she didn't violate. And because she was confident about that, we could go forward. So, David, are you ready for my question? You'll have to unmute. I don't want as a creator to remind you to unmute. If you're addressed, should check your computer right away.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
If a whale beaches itself or a pod of whales beaches itself, what is the role of confidence in that whale or that pod? How does the word confidence or the act, you describe what confidence is or isn't, a state, whatever. How does confidence relate or feature? What is its role in the beaching?
It seems like the whale has a lack of confidence in where it's at. It's usually something sick. It's sick or being disoriented by sonar or something.
No, it
I
can't be a
believe.
lack. It's probably overconfidence, because
Overconfidence.
otherwise we call it confusion. It's confused where it is.
Right.
But if it's confidence and it beaches, it's overconfident, right?
It could be, yes. I mean, if it doesn't realize how
All I'm
shallow
saying
things
is its confidence was not placed well because it ended up beaching itself,
right.
you know, or the pod. If it's an individual whale, you might say it was intentional. It wanted to beach itself to die. It was near the end of its lifespan, and that's where it decided to end its physical existence. So come back to me, David.
Okay.
Clarify, think, talk to others if you need to, but give me a definitive reply, not a, give me your final answer. This is a quiz show.
This is a quiz show. Alison, can you
1,
help
2,
help out
3.
here? Sorry, confidence, I don't know about confidence in whales beaching.
Think just logically and scientifically. And if emotion plays the part, put that in. But what is the role of confidence in the whale beaching itself?
It has confidence that it can get back in the water again. I would think if confidence has a role there like that.
I'll tell you, most of the time they don't get back in the water, so its
Yeah,
confidence is not very well founded.
no.
But that's okay. I understand why you're saying that. All right, Glenn, your first question, please.
Oh, okay. We're moving right along. Oh, I need to share my screen here.
If your question is under 40 words, read it. If it's over 40 words, share it.
Oh, okay. The first question has two parts. Who are you? Where is your home?
Okay. That's probably not the first question I would lead with aliens. We're going to go back to the beach. I'll address Alison. You haven't factored in that you could be asking a question to beings who are overly confident and not qualified to give you a comprehensive response due to overconfidence. So you have to actually use your skills as a scientist and as a representative of Earth and Earth women to make sure the beings you're addressing, that there is time for some level of human female assessment so that you can, like Ruth, breathe and go back to God and say, now, wait a minute, I'm going to just stop everything and talk to God and leave myself open to God, because I no longer would want to proceed as I originally planned. I don't want to ask, who are you? I want to know, you know, more about what are you, in the sense that, are you approaching this over eagerly? Okay. I can address one of the stringers, Mr. Victoria or Ms. Winings. Which one of you wants to take the next question?
Dan?
I'll take the next question.
So if you heard what I said to Alison Wakelin about proceeding, why do you think certain beings in the cosmos would be deemed as over-enthusiastic by God, if in fact God would deem them? So example, how many children do you have?
we have two boys that have lived and grown up with us, and we gave one daughter to another couple.
Okay, suppose someone comes into your life and recounts a story about your daughter who was given to another couple when she was 6, coming into the kitchen in a very excited fashion, wanting to show her mommy, if we have to put it in quotes, a drawing, and the mommy says, "Just a minute, dear." Okay, so that's a very normal, understandable response of a mother. However, for some children, they'll accept that, others won't. They have a need that everything around them stops and that mom takes them in her gaze and engages with them and says, "That's so beautiful. Can you just stand by me for a minute while I turn off the sink, the water's running," or, move the handle of the pan away from hanging over the edge of the stove so you don't grab it or knock it. Can you just let me do some housekeeping things before I mother you and engage completely and 100% and even more with you about what you're enthusiastic about. There are a lot of women who just don't have the time in their day to just stop everything and engage with their child, okay, even if they want to. And there are other women who feel that the best interest of the child is not to concede always being interrupted. But we have to allow that among the percentage of children that would do this, there will be children who deeply want their parent to engage with them in that moment. And that if that mother is in a relationship with God, I might just signal to you, "Honey, could you just stop frying the sausages for a minute? Just, turn the rice cooker on low or put things on a slow burner. Let's see what happens." Now, if the mother listens and the story continues to unfold and the child shows the image and it's mommy and daddy on a rocket ship and they're blasting off and mommy and daddy are waving goodbye and the child has a big smile on the face, you would think that the child has been informed by God that this is not a separation or that he or she would be lost and separated from their parents, but that there's something given to the child where the child is comfortable to happily wave goodbye to mommy and daddy. All right, and that happens because we have enthusiasm in some small numbers of cases. Okay, I would like this question to go to a woman, so all women listen, and if you want to respond, raise your hand. In that occurrence, if it was an alien life, and if an alien approached and was deeply enthusiastic, given that you know you have an existent relationship with Almighty God and the rest of the creation, what is your role if an alien approaches you as a woman enthusiastically? Raise your hand if you'd like to answer. And you're female. Kathleen?
And they're showing me a picture, or they're showing me something. I would say,
Get your attention.
yes. I would say, what do you see here? So I would turn and try to get their vantage point of what they're offering.
Okay. Now the follow-up question, I know it's going to seem ridiculous, but I'm sure it'll be a very quick answer, whether it's got a chuckle or not. To you, Kathleen, do you and David have more than 8,000 children, biological children?
No, I'm quite sure we don't.
Does God have more than 8,000 biological children?
Most assuredly.
Yeah. So in terms of equity, maybe we don't have the time for each child to have quality experiences like we would in the home. Right?
Right.
So if we open our hearts and our chakras to being highly responsive in a very personal way, we will have a lot of give and take with maybe one or two alien groups, right? But perhaps not everybody, right?
Right.
So that is a question that women on Earth have to ask themselves. Are we going for quality or quantity? We need a female moderator. I would like to ask Kathy Winings to do this. For the next 4 minutes, conduct a discussion on all participants, women and men, on the role of quality and confidence in what we're doing now, please. And you don't have to put in input if you don't want to, if it makes being a moderator easier. Would you begin now? Quality and quantity. I said confidence, but I meant quality and quantity discussion
okay.
here.
All right. Floor is open.
Just speak if no one else has their
Okay.
hand up, Glenn. We'll
All
save
right.
time that way.
Yes. Well, in this situation, I would prefer that we focus on quality and not quantity. So we can have some chance to really understand who or what we're communicating with.
Okay. Anyone else? Kathleen?
I would say that when in the initial opportunity where Chris was channeling aliens, there was a group that was more immature and asking kind of very immature kind of questions, and then we shifted over to a more mature alien presence, and I think that showed that we were benefiting more from the more mature quality rather than having more people share, but maybe not on the same level of communication. So based on our experience, even very limited, I would go more with quality as well.
Okay, thank you. Blondine, you had your hand up earlier? No?
At this point, Madam Moderator, Heavenly Parent, I need to advise you that at least one of your participants is fielding questions from aliens without knowing. That would be Victoria or Adruma Victoria.
Adruma?
So we should ask him if he wants to speak up. Adruma, you may not have realized that aliens are trying to communicate through you.
Well, in the past, Heavenly Parent, they have
You're addressing the moderator, not Heavenly Parent, please.
Excuse me, dear moderator. In the past, when Glenn was channeling the alien life, I turned my camera off because I was having an alien encounter, and so I didn't want to be seen because it's kind of weird. But yeah, so I've already had some indications that I have a relationship with the aliens already. So
yeah, you have that relationship as one of the supporters of Archangel Lucifer preparing for his blessing. So it was either you or Andrew, and you drew the straw.
Thank you, Adruma.
Unbeknownst to myself. Okay, so
Much obliged.
I'm calling in my sister Allison. She's my female balance in this, so we've already had this conversation. So
Well, Andrew, just to stay true to the moderator, the Heavenly Parent, the real question here is about quality and quantity. So whether you're speaking for yourself or your blessed family, or you're speaking for aliens or some hybrid or anything that is described or undescribed, before you sign off, do you have any input to the moderator about quantity and quality on what happens here today?
Thing is, I prefer quality, not only because I want to get to know these beings better, but because I think they would benefit in having more time to develop a relationship with us.
Okay. What is the role of God? And anybody can answer this in Freudian slips. Can God have a Freudian slip?
Why not?
absolutely.
What is a Freudian slip? What is the definition of a Freudian slip for God, Allison?
It's like when God says something by mistake, but it's actually what's really appropriate. Like you said, Andrew, when you were talking to Adruma.
Exactly. I meant the question to go to Adruma, but the Jewish spirit world, who was so upset with me alienating them, pushed through my voice, Andrew.
Oh, no.
Hmm.
Does that mean I should continue, or what, where we going?
I haven't changed who I was actually asking the question to in strategy. All the spirit world did was take advantage of the love affair between God and Jews and on an emotive way channel it through to Andrew. But my personal strategy as creator was to ask the question to you. So if you want to support the strategy of God, answer the question.
Well, quality is definitely important, and I want to understand how there can be mutual benefit for God, for women, for men, for the alien population to grow and even find trust and not violate the relationship, but try to engage with the least amount of collateral damage as we gain more intimacy.
Okay, I have the answer. We're going to rush along. When we agreed that we were going to have 6 meetings at 2 hours, which is a total of 12 hours, if we were to go for, if we go for quantity, we're going to learn a lot about aliens generally and a lot of scientific research. So we have to ask this question, given the state of humankind and the state of God and the state of the original design. So does somebody get it? The 3 points: state of humankind, state of God, and the state of the original design. How does quality versus quantity feature here? So I'll just elaborate some options here. I recently identified about myself some negatives, and I recently placed myself as a mother in a position of pain because I cut off from the Jewish people because they're, I'm going to go out and say it, murdering individuals in Gaza. And that is painful. That's part of my state. And that's not part of the original design. And it's not necessarily the sum total of the human experience. So how does God with you weigh up these 3 items? The state of God emotionally in the feminine, the state of humanity, and the original design, because this Zoom should be proceeding based on the original design. That is the imperative, that is the positive, that is the ideal of God, and therefore the ideal of creation. So if we proceed on the ideal of creation, we're going to go back to 1974, 72, 69, and 58, when the spirit world is liaising with the unification movement, saying, let's just get something done. We're going to talk about primary history and peripheral history. Let's gather a group of people unto us and go back and pick up the fruit that's fallen out of the basket later. Let's go back and find the lost sheep later. Let us have a primary focus, and we're just going to have to accept that a lot of people will fall by the wayside because we want to get something done to achieve the ideal. It's no longer a situation, if we do that, where women will say, well, that happened to us because men were making all the decisions, and therefore, you know, we didn't have a say in whether or not certain people would be left out or included. So you can see that from the space that I'm coming in as a heavenly parent, the compelling desire of the Jewish population to be chosen has said, we will go completely against everything. We will go against God, we'll go against the rest of creation, we will go against everyone else in order to maintain our status of being chosen. So when God commences a conversation based on the ideal to engage with aliens as originally foreseen in the design of creation, we're going to make sure that God cannot ignore us. And we're going to take over the conversation and make it about us, so that the conversation is no longer about the ideal, but about the supremacy of Jewish people in relating to God. Now, this may not have happened if the Palestinians or Hamas had not bombed the crossing where Israeli soldiers were killed, but it might have, but they did bomb it, and the Jewish response was, we're preparing to completely alienate the United States and invade Rafah, and perhaps bring the world to the brink of a world war. So, you know, in order to maintain the supremacy of our relationship with God. So most people in the past would say, well, that's too big for us, God. We can't see everything you can see. You're just going to have to decide. We think that's your portion of responsibility. But I argue that it's no longer just the portion of responsibility of Almighty God. When women and men are mature enough to hear a report about what is purported or said to be going on, they have the freedom in their relationship with God and others to engage and find out whether they're in agreement or disagreement or ascribe to some of it or none of it. And that relationship, that dynamic between the human population and Almighty God is what then steers the choices that both God and people make. So no longer is it God choosing to flood the earth and then everybody has to put up with the result, but it is, you know, human women and human men making the decisions, and everybody has to put up with the result. So we could argue, well, yay, it's no longer just human men making the decisions and putting up with the result. Now we get women to bear responsibility as well. But that doesn't change the fact that God as a woman is broken, that that I am being used by my own children whom I love deeply, and then I feel invaded, you know, and I have people who are so rude who are Jewish, like, how dare you be invaded? You know, Jews in the Second World War, their skin was taken off their body while they were alive for experimentation. You know, if you can't handle your skin being removed, God, then who the heck are you? You know, we have to endure this for you, so you can endure this for us. You know, we have to figure it out. This is part of our destiny. This is part of who we are in order to find out what we as a people have been through. You can't just shut the tap off on our pain because you don't want pain. And, you know, I've just refused to answer because I have many good responses to that, but that's a question about them shutting off their pain. It's not a question about me wanting to stop them to stop conspiring to murder others on the planet Earth in Gaza. So when we agreed to do these 6 Zooms, we didn't have such a preposterous stance by members of the Jewish community. Allison?
Yeah.
You know where your husband is living, right?
My ex-husband lives in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Does he consider himself living in Israel or in Palestine?
Israel.
Do you consider him living in Israel, Palestine, or somewhere else?
He's living in what should be two states.
It
But
should be negotiated?
Yes, they should be negotiating.
Okay. So that's where I'm going to begin in your response to field all the Jewish questions. That's what's going to empower Andrew and Louise if they get questions about anything on this matter. The reiteration, what you just said, that he, your ex, David, should be living in what's considered for 2 states. We're not going to start with how many bodies are piling up in Gaza, and we're not going to start with how many people are conspiring in a murderous way in the spirit world to go against American resolve and the condemnation of world communities. Now, how many of you, put your hand up if you've read 2 or more articles, seen 2 or more news bulletins, have followed information regarding American protests on American campuses?
Yeah.
So should what we just discussed, God in this group, but also God and Ellison in particular, impact what is happening on American campuses? Is there a relationship? And if it is, what is it? And if there is no relationship, should there be a relationship? Louise, would you like to field this question?
Yes, there should be a relationship.
Would you tell your husband, Glenn, what you think the relationship should be so he can unite with you or provide input if necessary?
Just as we are respecting very much that there should be 2 states, so also the people surrounding these protests, the professors, the other students, the parents, the donors, the police should also have some respect for this, which was just stated.
Okay, so the invisible spirit world is contemplating having a march on Washington against the Gaza war. Would you support the spirit world for that, or would you be opposed? Could you consult Andrew? Before
Hi,
answering,
Andrew.
could you consult Andrew?
Sure. Andrew, hello.
You're muted, Andrew.
Yes.
Well, I would support it. Would you support it?
Yes, I definitely would support.
Okay, so we would both support it, yes.
Okay, so now step out of your role of presidency and become sister and brother in a unificationist community and talk to other people on Zoom and ask them their opinions about campuses.
Does anyone disagree with what Andrew and I are standing for here?
Absolutely not.
We agree.
The Jewish people are controlling the narrative in the media and disregarding the life of their brothers in the Gaza.
And sisters.
And sisters.
Next question. Go on, Glenn.
I would like there to be more stated than just it's protesting the war in Gaza. I mean, I think.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to cut you off. I was going there. The next part of this question is going to be, I only said that they were considering a march on Washington. I didn't say for what purpose or what would be included or what would be excluded, hostages or this or that, or diplomacy or cabinet change in Biden's cabinet, or a broader and better centrality of issues with regard to the upcoming American election. All right. I only asked the question as if you would support a march. That's all. I assume that you're responsible and mature, that you would not support a march which is so out of control that there's great bloodshed.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I don't think we have to define the quality of the march. We have to ask ourselves if you support the spirit world, and also you can decide for yourself whether you want to engage God in prayer about what issues should be stated or not. Okay? Okay, so let's remind ourselves why we're having this discussion during a Zoom about aliens. It's because of an agreement to have 6 meetings, and the narrative about conducting the meeting with God, humanity, non-human, non-angels, has been usurped by violence in the Middle East.
So we're not going to talk about aliens at all, or what?
We will, but nothing happens in the cosmos, Ellison, if you don't maintain your proper relationship with God. And you have to accept that no matter what God and you ever plan in the creation, things can go wrong. And that other beings can, because they exist, do or say something which impacts the heart and desire of God. The divine principle factors that in by saying that every time Jesus wanted to do something, Satan would oppose, or when God works, Lucifer or Satan acts 180 degrees opposite. It's not always 180 degrees opposite that is successful in tripping up God or people. Right? Any of you who live in a house with stairs, every time you go up and down those stairs, you're requiring your spirit world and God to keep you safe. You cannot all the time think about exactly where your foot is placed. And if you're in a rush to go up and get something, you may not notice that somebody else dropped something on the stairs, not knowingly, and then you could step and slip and hurt yourself. That is going to trip you up. That will take over your day if you fall and hurt your knee. How much this plan to talk, Ellison, about alien life has been stolen for another purpose remains to be seen. But what I don't want is, since women and men are making the decisions here, I don't want women to unknowingly march forward at the command of God and forget their central role to be responsible individuals in front of God and ask serious questions about everything all the time. And I want the invisible spirit world, the saints who have an affinity with Delaware group women, to have a broader understanding of their role, quote, in heaven to support God. Yes, we want all this dialogue and we want to know who aliens are and we want to have a better sense. But when we finish the Zoom, if tomorrow's newspaper is an incursion into Gaza, there'll be a lot of heartbroken people on the planet. And there will be people torn in different directions. And it's no longer only God being in pain because she's cut off certain Jewish people because of their refusal to step away from acts of violence to the point of murder. These people are people in the spirit world and on earth who are inflamed, who read the Bible about the Israelites going in and killing people and taking foreskins off of bodies and, destroying a village to reclaim the Holy Land as their own, and a whole onslaught on the inhabitants that were in the area prior to the Israelites coming back from Egypt. These are people who read that Bible and say, well, if they got away with it in front of God and God remained true to us and, quote, the covenant, whatever they think it is, well, then we can get away with it. It doesn't matter. One death, a million, it's all the same. It's for the purpose of God. It's for, quote, the will of God. Destroy life so that Jews can have the Holy Land. And Christians, particularly evangelicals, is yay! As soon as they kill all of those people, Israel is restored and the Messiah can come back. Hooray! And we will believe anything for anybody who wants to speak in a messianic and boastful way. Hooray! We will lobby behind someone, whether it's Mr. Trump or whomever, who is even remotely passionate or impassioned, if that's a word, or coining it, to pursue a goal to get their glorified imaginary messianic being back to earth, including rapture. So we're dealing with people who believe in hocus pocus, but their belief in hocus pocus is supporting the murder of individuals on a foreign soil. Now, before I go on to how we're going to manage this usurping and this, I've chosen to speak a little bit at length just now with Chris, and there are lots of people in the spirit world who are taking issue with what I've said, and they're firing off questions from the spirit world. Did you just say that through Chris because that's his disposition? Did you say that because that's his position? Did you say that because that's what his ancestors think? Did you say that because it was convenient? Did you say that because you're speaking in a masculine way through a male medium? Did you say that because you really mean it? Oh, don't answer if you really do mean it, God, because we're not prepared to field your true response. If you actually mean what you're saying, don't answer. So we won't actually respond to the people in the spirit world just now. Let's talk to people on earth. With what I said, are there some negatives? Is it too extreme? Is it a situation where somebody has to say, oh, God, cool your heels, you know, relax, we're with you, God, and we'll try to soften the blow here. We'll try to feminize things, and we'll try to help you. And we will try to pull it all together and make sure that love is the strongest force winning out here? Or is it important here to state these things? Is there a role, Kathleen, with the expression, call a spade a spade? You're a woman. Does that idea or idiom or whatever it is, or phrase, call a spade, is that something you as a woman would use in your life and in your vocabulary? Would you call a spade as a woman?
I could probably use that expression and not feel that it was sexist in some way. Yeah, probably I could if I wanted to use the meaning.
So for example, let's imagine an imaginary squabble in the kitchen with you and Dave, and David takes eggs out of the fridge and one drops on the floor, and you say, David, it's spilled. And he says, no, it's not, it just slipped out of my hands. You know, he's more describing how it happened. And you're like, no, I saw how it happened, but I just want to go right to the result. It's spilled. And then you start arguing about process and plan, and you just say, okay, but it's a spilled egg. I'm going to call a spade. I'm not going to call it anything else. What do you call it down there? What is it? Is it a bump because the yolk hasn't broken, or is it a mess? You know, people can get arguing because their focus is different. But still, as a woman, would you sometimes want to just say, I don't want to argue about it. I just want us to agree that it's there, and we have to decide what we're going to do. We're 2 minutes away from leaving to be on time to see our daughter. You know, we're going to let that stay there or work together to clean it up, or, you know, we have to make an assessment here. And, you know, it's really not a big issue. It's on egg sticks, it makes a mess. Most people will want to clean it up right away, even if it means they're going to be 3 minutes late. But when you don't do that, it's a baptism, you're going to miss the eulogy, and you're going to miss the plane to see the birth of your new great-granddaughter. That's when you're like, no, that's just going to have to wait. But you can still call a spade, right?
That's right.
So that's where I see women in my original ideal as calling a spade. Because traditionally, the overlying reality that goes with that expression, calling a spade is, it is that, therefore we will do this. But the saying strictly isn't saying it is that, therefore we will. It's usually used as a transitionary statement to say that is that, therefore. But what I want women in decision making to say is, we, just like men, can call something what it is, but we don't necessarily agree with the follow-up. So I
I
don't
bet.
even know if I, as a heavenly parent, agree with my own follow-up. All I know is at the moment right now, Jeannie, I'm broken. And I rely on my daughters to hold the fort while I try to contain my broken heart. And I expect them to be responsible, mature, wise, and working with another aspect of God which pursues goodness and angels to go forward. Because you see, if women hold the fort for me and pursue goodness, they will draw me out of my lamentation and they will say, look, we're so sorry to interrupt you, God, if you needed to self-flagellate. However, we're going this way and this looks correct for us. And this is what we have as your daughters. This is how we are deciding things. And it is only over to you. We invite you to come into this, you know, if you want to pull yourself out of that. So you give God the freedom to be in pain or the freedom to leave pain. I want to talk to this community and then we're going to go back to discussing aliens, but do you not agree that it is a good idea that mature women should have the option to invite God to come with those women on a path of goodness, or to stay in a state of self-flagellation? Because I am beating myself up through the ages. Why didn't I tell Jews this? Why didn't I tell them that? Why aren't they better prepared? Why are they behaving this way? Where did I fail as a parent? How can my children do this to me? And okay, I need to come up with some conclusive answers on some of this so that we can all go forward. But at the same time, if women are pursuing goodness, I don't want to just rush into my masculine self and say, Heavenly Father is here with you ladies. Let's go. Let's do this. I've got your back as your father. I need to also enter into the equation in the feminine, and I need to be able to espouse in a joint way with women what is good. Any comments on what I've said from women or men in the audience?
You go, girl.
Thank you. Glenn, read your question again about aliens. Question 1 that you and Ellison agreed.
Oh, yes, right.
And this time you can put it on the screen for everyone.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, let me share it then. Okay, who are you? Where is your home?
All right, so everyone can see Chris's image? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 We're not going to deal with the second question, where is your home? We're just going to deal with the who are you. We'll have a group of 12 groups. We'll keep it simple. Are you ready?
Yes.
In the first instance, they'll be addressing Kathy Wining as their choice. Kathy, are you ready?
Yes.
We are a group of people who see world hunger. What do you think the alien role should be in supporting world hunger?
And you want me to answer that, respond to that?
We don't care if you respond
Okay.
or you think about it and reserve the right not to respond, but we, as the first alien group, want to make the first point of contact with Earth to be
Okay.
world hunger.
All right. Yes, I
Do you
would
think
like to
we're
respond.
wrong? Do you think we're wrong to come in first? Do you think world hunger is a good place to start?
Yes.
Why? Could you tell your community, please? And we'll monitor.
Because in a world that have food provided by God, by Heavenly Parent, there's no reason why people should go hungry. I've seen too many children and families starve to death.
With exception, right? People go hungry when they're in their car. They're driving from California to New Mexico,
True.
and the car
True.
breaks down and they can't, their cell phone, and they
Yeah.
didn't prepare with water. And the fact that they are hungry and cold now becomes your spirit
Different
world's
reason.
role to help them be found, right?
Sure.
And your prayer and engagement with God and even aliens helps that person be found and
Yes.
sustenance. For example, certain alien communities could, in that occasion, do a drop. We could drop water from one of our crafts in the physical world.
Wow.
In bottles?
Of course we could. It doesn't matter. We would just assess, is what we're going to do going to keep these people alive
Yeah.
and safe? We could do that. We
Uh-huh.
have the capacity now. Do you want to talk about capacity now, Kathy or Allison or anybody else interested in alien capacity here?
Yes.
Because you asked who we are. That's part of who we are.
Yeah. Have you done
I mean,
this?
I'm thinking of
No,
long,
we don't
large
do it
groups of
because it's
people.
an intervention. What?
I'm thinking about, groups of people who just have no access to food or water.
This
for
is
whatever.
this is our quandary as beings from another place. Because if you drop food supplies in South Sudan or southern, in the country South Sudan or in the southern part of Sudan, you allow life to continue, but some of those people then can take up arms and continue fighting. And also you potentially introduce a reliance on aliens being caretakers to keep people alive. Whereas our belief is that we don't intervene except by invitation. And of course, what we hear here with God of creation, talking about feminine and masculine balance, you certainly don't intervene if women don't want you there. And so it becomes a situation where women co-own the invitation to alien to intervene. Okay? And women, we would say to women, well, are you in the Pentagon? Are you going to protect aliens from being shot down because they're picked up as a UFO, and therefore the drop off doesn't make its way, and alien bodies are politely removed to a place like New Mexico? Intervention can come at a cost of life for aliens. So I don't want individuals on Earth to think that our intervention is cost-free. But our community is altruistic. So we would say if that happens, that's in the service of love, humanity, creation, the angels, and the whole cosmos, the whole creation. Therefore, we are doing this out of true love. And if our sacrifice is part of the role, then that's our choice whether we willingly put ourselves in harm's way to love and serve.
Could it be also, though, to help us understand what we could do that we're not doing to help those who are, undergoing famine? Even to initiate
I think
that
is a question that needs to come after you fully address my introductory remarks about our capacity. You need to tease out in what way we have capacity or we don't have capacity. I think the first thing as an alien I would like to say is we follow a path of non-intervention, but readiness. Should God need us or humanity need us, we are ready. Now, we understand that for the human heart, for many people, that would immediately translate to comfort. Wow, at least beyond God and beyond angels and ascended human beings, there are even some aliens who seem qualified or capable and seem to have some measure of heart or life where they are, at least in their capacity, open to supporting us. That should translate to some sort of comfort. Now, you're the human, I'm not. Is it comforting to anybody here that we would have this approach?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Why? ladies, I'm addressing the ladies here. Why is it comforting what I'm articulating?
Because we're so used to capacity and stuff being used just for people to take power and to hurt other people with no care for them. So if there's somebody who actually cares and has the capacity to do something about the suffering, that would be incredible.
Yes, so I would say we
teaches.
have non-destructive capacity. I would talk to Mrs. Straight here. Are you still there, Louise?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
I mean, would this not feature in what you and Andrew are trying to do in the nation state of Israel and over there, that if you find out that there's another bonus opportunity to get help where it's non-destructive, is that not something you and Andrew would think about?
Absolutely. I like the term non-destructive capacity. Yes, I'm underlining
Yes.
that. Mhm.
Well, yeah, we had a lot of council meetings on our planet and we wrote that just for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's do a spatial where, so we're going to use light years and galaxies, so and math. So in terms of where we reside, at least 16 light years away. Do you have a sense of how many kilometers 16 light years is?
Not a clue.
Can
Hello,
someone
no
put it
clue.
into Google and see if Google knows, please? How many kilometers is 16 light years?
It sounds like a lot.
How many kilometers is 16 light years?
16 light years is 151,371,200,000,000 kilometers.
Wow,
That's a lot.
It's a lot,
that's
yeah.
far away.
100.
It might be far away, but we have the capacity to drop a food drop in the state of Arizona.
Wow.
Wow.
So that must mean that we have ships. That must mean that some of us are pretty far from home.
Yes.
Yeah.
So does it get lonely?
That's
When you're
very
far
kind of
from
you,
home.
but we're not lonely.
Okay.
We made sure to bring some amenities from our planet.
I have a technical question. With the
Yes, please.
with your altruistic capacity, I'm wondering, as you know, as you referred to Sudan, you know that the African continent has a lot of solar energy possibility. Is there a technology that you might possess to be able to harness the capacity of the African continent in a way that we have not been able to do to help the African continent?
Short answer, yes. Reserve the right not to respond in favor of other alien speakers here, perhaps taking up the mantra of technology. I wanted particularly to talk about hunger. I wanted particularly to let women on the planet know they're not alone when they see human children suffering, and that it is not only God or angels or other women or men that can help, but that there are potentially what you might call benevolent beings who would support a woman's request of God to support hunger. You know, the main issue for not intervening is dependency, that you not teaching a person how to fish, you're providing the fish, and therefore they become reliant on your provision of fish. And it becomes a very difficult ethical question because you are going to see real people die and ascend who have real questions about why God didn't use alien intervention to prevent their death. So it becomes a situation where women and men with God have to make strong decisions and weigh up options where if to feed 1 or 100,000 is to make progress in one space, but to open up cans of worms that allow for greater division and destruction, we have a problem. So, for example, you feed 20,000 people, and then it becomes a situation where scientific analysis is more important than assessing the value of those people having been fed. In other words, it's alien, it's unknown, so let's assess it. Let's get into the science. Let's not go social. Let's not assess the value of the people being fed. So we then have a conflict between social progress and scientific desire. And if scientific desire turns nasty, we get A-bombs. So can you understand now why aliens are not eager to self-identify?
Yeah.
Does it make sense as the created child of God to you in your position as child, daughter, or son, what I'm saying?
On multiple levels.
Yes.
So it becomes a situation where the assessment of Almighty God that your group is mature and that you are women and men, not just women and not just men, is amazing to us because it's an indication of social progress. The simple two words social progress can have incredibly large numbers of meanings to incredibly large numbers of people in incredibly large numbers of scenarios. So that I can't possibly do it justice, and I can't possibly say that we in our planet have a good understanding of social progress. We've debated it in our, what you might call House of Commons, innumerable times. What is social progress on Earth? Have you seen social progress discussed in Congress as an item? What is social progress?
Not really.
No, they're too busy patting themselves on the back for having good founding daddies to worry
or
about
arguing
what
with
is
each
the
other.
role. Yes, or arguing is fine as long as the argument has a constructive outcome and stimulates people to achieve something. But the value here is that positive social engagement means people have more discussion with God. It means God has more voice in society. What did I just say, Miss Carol? Positive social dialogue means people have more questions, they have more discussion with God, means God's have more voice. Isn't that what you've been praying about? I want God to have more voice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, I know we're not supposed to ask questions, but
You may. I'm open to your questions. God has pulled me in your direction. Please go ahead.
I just, as far as having the capacity to intervene, but not wanting to be like not dependent upon. But anyway, I was thinking in another respect to we have the technology, we have the ability, we have food galore on this planet, which we're destroying by the tons every day, because those that are at the helms of whatever in this world are not able to see beyond their limitations and go beyond barriers and go beyond language and go beyond culture and economy to equally
I'm going to interrupt
feed.
you because I don't know if you, I'm going to give you my name in a minute, but I can see your spirit world. I have that ability as a being, and they're all over you. Like, if you think that, then when you were a young unificationist, why did you let people dominate you? And so don't answer. They don't have it's not the correct question. The question should have been a statement on their point. It should have been, if only we had known what we know today years ago. That's all.
Yeah.
It's
I agree.
Why do we have to turn it into it? We also don't engage with ascended spirit people who fall into the state of accusation rather than a self-assessment. You're supposed to assess and then let people tear your assessment to bits if it's wrong, or go back to God, or, put it in conditional language like, at least for now, this is where I'm at. Right? I mean, this is why we check with Louise and Andrew. So when we make some sort of statement, they can say, well, at least for now, that's what they're saying. And at least for now, that's where we're at. The whole argument of where God let in was with Ruth. It's not good enough just to know you're going to marry Boaz, go in and commence, but be a woman, be a child of God, and do all that you can do. And you have the capacity to relate to God. So in this case, incorporate incredible amounts of God's femininity. I'm going to give you my name. I'm going to give you why I've chosen this name. And then we're going to have a shorter dialogue about that, if it's okay. Matthew with 2 T's, Pontius Luda, L-U-D-A. So Luda is my surname on my planet. Matthew I chose because after Judas's abandonment of Jesus, if I can call it that, it's a form of abandonment. Matthew was chosen. Pontius because he washed his hands of Jesus. And the fact is, this is my reminder that I never want to wash my hands of earth, and I never want to abandon God's investment in the planet Earth. In other words, some of us aliens have the capacity to appreciate at great depth the ability of God to invest in a population, in this case, Earth populations. And so we believe that if we tell you that part of our capacity is appreciation, that should factor in the dialogue with yourselves and aliens. We will come up short where we don't have the ability to appreciate this or that, right? When you start noticing points of differentiation, because you can't imagine that another planet is necessarily, 3 trillion% like Earth, just so like Earth. You would expect at some point you're going to come, when you compare your planet to the place of our residence, that you would find some point of differentiation, right? And therefore, with any point of differentiation, there becomes a more difficult reality of appreciation, right?
Mhm.
So if we take women who miscarry, a woman who miscarries 3 children might say that she can appreciate what a woman who miscarries 12 children has been through, but she might stop herself and say, I just can't fathom your loss. Losing 3 babies was enough for me. I can't imagine losing an additional 9. So human beings have ways of communicating to express their heart, their love, and their appreciation. For example, they'll use eye contact, they'll use embrace, they'll use service, they will modify time. So for example, someone comes to their house, they think that they're going to be with them for 20 minutes, but then they decide they're going to give them 30 because they feel they can, and their heart is pulled in that direction. And they feel that even though it might stretch their day, they're still going to give that person those extra 10 minutes. And that's all, from my perspective, a way of loving and appreciating someone or caring for them. Am I wrong in my use of the English adjectives anywhere there? Are all 3 okay? Care, appreciation, loving, all okay?
Yeah.
Women and men agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Daniel, you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Why do you agree, please? What city are you living in?
Ottawa, Canada.
So as a non-American resident, why are you telling us this? Why are you agreeing with that? Explain the non-American viewpoint here.
I'm having very great difficulty hearing you, Chris. Could you repeat the last after why?
Explain the non-American viewpoint is what the alien said, whether or
Yeah.
not you have American citizenship or not, but you're living outside of the American borders. Why do you agree with those words is what they're asking. You, specifically, Daniel.
Well, we want to be an open and welcoming people. Welcoming. And in doing that, we have to adjust our thinking to accept differences. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, Chris.
Yes. Yes. So what I'm seeing, and I don't know if you realize it, but some of us aliens also can have an epiphany or a vision or have a spiritual sense where God communicates to us. And I just had that. And God showed me Canada, and you were representing Canada, and you had suspenders on, and God was widening the suspender things that hold up your pants. And so the imagery made
It's a
me
problem,
think,
yeah.
That's a problem.
That's just you being humorous. Thank you for injecting humor into the alien dialogue. But I think the issue here is that nations such as Canada can have a broader support structure of God should they want to. It's not just the American big brother, older brother nation concept.
Absolutely.
Does it surprise you? I'm asking the whole community here. Does it surprise you to notice or note that I am seemingly steeped in unification concepts, theology, positions, and understandings by throwing in words like big brother? Would you have thought I would have known that much?
No.
Well, if you circle in a ship around and monitor dialogue, you might know a thing or two about wherever you've been circulating for however long you've been circulating.
You're blowing my mind anyway.
Okay, I would like now to talk about life expectancy. In terms of Earth life expectancy, my life expectancy on Earth is 893 years.
Woohoo!
So if I have a life expectancy of 893 years, and let's make a mathematical determination, I'm going to give you several options, A, B, C, D, E, whatever. Somebody start writing them down. It's just numbers. A generation is 18 years, a generation is 20 years, 22 or 25. Who wants to choose what a Earth generation is? In 100 years, are you likely to see that many generations? Divide 100 by 18, Andrew.
Divide 100 by 18, we get a little over 5.
So most people don't really have 5 generations in 100 years, but it's possible, right?
It's possible.
And it could be quite common within 100 years to have 4 generations, right? If we use 25.
Yeah.
So let's just go on the area of 25. What's 25 into the number I gave you, 900, whatever?
800.
A whole lot.
35.7.
What?
35.7.
So I could be around for 35.7 generations of Earth, supporting you long after you're ascended. However, I'm not a spring chicken. I've been around for a while. I'm certainly more like a 35-year-old in your Earth year of 100 years. So if we take 35 as roughly a third of 100, what is a third of the age that I gave you of my life expectancy? Mathematics. Andrew, divide the 3-digit number by 1/3, please. You're muted. You're supposed to be
You gotta-
responsible. God and aliens are
298.
supposed-
298 years.
We'll round it to 300. So roughly in terms of my life expectancy, I'm roughly 300 years. And that is about right. I think I started circling Earth in the Earth year 1702.
Why?
Sometimes you get bored on your own planet. I'm sure you would, if you could get out of Earth, you would have been all over if you could.
I would indeed.
Oh, yeah, bored out of our
All right.
skulls.
All right, I'm going to have to go. Let's talk about first impressions. Have I made a positive first impression? Not so positive or negative?
Positive.
Very positive.
Positive.
Very positive.
Wonderfully positive.
Positive, yes.
Okay, why, let's just dialogue about gender. So I am identifying in a sense of being male. I've used the male name Matthew. At least I would say 38% is convenience. In order to have a positive experience, talk about hunger, talk through a male medium. Let's just not confuse things. Let's let a masculine energy go through a masculine medium and get an output. But if that's only 30, 33, 38%, that means we have an additional, what, 62%? So what's going on with the other 62%? So I'll phrase the question this way, and you don't have to respond. I'm just poising it for us to move forward in the dialogue, but you can if you want. Why present as masculine? What's in the other 60% as to why God would present as masculine? I will address Ms. Carroll and Mr. Carroll. You don't have to put yourself on camera or voice. But as a couple, you have a role to support each other, and no matter how well you do it or don't, you still have a role to support each other. And so when we hear that Mother God is suffering and in pain about Israel and Gaza, the masculine population of aliens feels they have a role to support her, so she doesn't have to think, so that she can just fall apart. You know, there's a role when there's a tragedy, a child is killed coming home and killed on a motorcycle or in an automobile crash, and the mother falls apart and the dad goes into immediate family gear. My grief is not mine. I didn't carry this child in my womb. My wife did. She is falling apart. She is emotional. She must be emotional. I have to keep the family together. I have a role. I happen to be masculine, but I have a role to support her no matter what, and to support God no what. My role today is to support her to fall apart. That's at least 12% of why we're coming. So if, in fact, Israel was not acting as it is, I can't say whether I would be first off the mark. I don't know, but I'm not stupid. At least I don't think of myself as being stupid. And I would use the expression, I'm not stupid, and just to say that, you know, there has to be a percentage of why God is bringing my gender or gender placement here. Okay, because I don't want to go into describing whether as a being I have a penis or testes or a buttocks or a tail or horns or whether I look like a lizard. You know, I don't want to go into any of that descriptors. I think the internal reality is going to be far more meaningful than any external noticing of features in the first place. Besides, history has on Earth a way of discounting people when they find out what their external attributes are. Oh, you're a woman? I don't need to listen to you. Oh, you have dark skin? I don't need to listen to you. Oh, you're short? I can look over you. I'm not gonna. You're a Gentile? I don't need to listen to you. Or, you know, all the labels that allow people to discount because they're described. So I don't want to take the first experience and open us all up to prejudice because I describe myself in my external characteristics. I'm much more interested in internal. So if I've made a positive first impression, I'm going to go back to the chair. Is this what you
Bye.
anticipated when you wrote that question?
No, I'm not sure what I anticipated, but this was a very good response, I would say.
Well, I would like to witness you and Ellison as chair people talking to each other and checking in with each other, just like Ruth checked in with God about how you were doing with this Zoom.
Well, yes,
Since you're
Allison.
chairing it, and I'm
Yeah, this is great. This is what I really wanted to start discussing, because I'm feeling like, maybe if there's aliens here who know what's going on, it gives us a whole different view of the future. So I'm very happy.
I'd like you, Allison, to discuss with Glenn this question, Matthew Pontius. Knowing that there's an alien who says that he's only 300 and could be going another 600 years, and we will see potentially many generations of our descendants on the earth while this being continues. What is our role, Glenn? This is Allison, only if you want to ask this question to Glenn, but I'm purporting the question. What is our role once we ascend to engage aliens to support our lineage? Is that a question you'd like to ask, Glenn,
Yeah,
as chair?
go for it,
I
Glenn.
want you to put it in your own words, please. And stop for a minute before you ask, and be a daughter of God and ask God if God is content with you. Just do the Ruth, check in, breathe, inhale, find your nostrils and find out if this is what you're meant to do, because I'm not a woman and I'm not going to be held accountable for what you do.
Well, Glenn, I guess this opens up the possibility, that Matthew Pontius Luda will be relating to our descendants after we're in the spirit world. So how do you think, how will we be a part of that, or how should we prepare our descendants for that? What can we do?
Well, as we are by the time we ascend, we will know more than we know now about.
I heard that, so I'm going to interrupt. I'll give you more knowledge now before you respond. How do you feel about the concept that as a being, I can leave my external physical body and enter into what you call your spirit world? And once you do ascend, I can meet and talk to you there and then come back into the physical universe. Does that in any way change the response you would give to Miss Wakeland, that knowing that you could actually ask that I come into the spirit world and talk to you about your lineage?
Well, not really. I guess I assumed that already, that you would have that capacity. For some reason, it just seemed natural that you could.
Okay, I think that out of a service to the other listeners here, you should check in with them. Did they also assume that, or did they think that it was just alien earthly communication? I, Chris, only was thinking earthly.
Yeah, I didn't assume that at all.
No, I agree with Glenn. I assumed the same as Glenn.
Oh, interesting.
I assumed that you probably had to do that to get here.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah. I assume that you already have a spiritual propensity of communication, and the fact that we're earthly incarnated is no distance to your ability.
That's just because we're doing, side swipes at you and Glenn in terms of presenting alien experience, not just through Christopher Kraft. So you already know that. But the work with Chris has been to steer an agenda, not an experience. And so we have to understand, if Christopher Kraft is getting agenda-related items, he won't be getting the same experiential related items that you and Glenn get. And if he, quote, as a master medium isn't getting that, then others in the Delaware group may not get that. So we have to have you and Glenn find better use of vocabulary to describe experience so other members of the Delaware group can communicate with you. Glenn, please continue responding. Sorry to interrupt your response to Allison's question.
Oh, well, I wanted to find out first from the Burtons what their assumption would have been about the possibility of Matthew Pontius to communicate with us after we ascend.
I'll say something.
Great.
I wondered if potential, because they're communicating through a medium, I was wondering with Kathleen this afternoon as to whether they already had a spirit world machine.
Okay,
So
well,
it's-
that's,
I'm not going to answer because it's a question to Glenn.
yeah, that's another question, yeah. But so in terms of my role or our role after we ascend to facilitate communication with and benefit from communication with Matthew Pontius, well, I think it's a great role that we can play, having had an earthly experience to go into the spiritual world with
Okay, then I will introduce my wife. Here's Janice Joanne Thompson.
What was the last name?
Thompson with a P.
Mm.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Hello, welcome.
I'm nearsighted. I'm nearsighted. I can't see unless I squint.
Okay.
Oh, okay, whatever.
So am I, so that's fine.
I'm older than my husband, about 106 Earth years older.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice to meet you. We're happy to have a
Mhm.
feminine presence. That's very
Yeah.
nice.
Yes.
I'm really quite blind. I can hardly see people.
Don't you have
Sorry.
glasses?
You know, I'm gonna have to ask you if you notice a kind of non-verbal communication from someone if you say it, so I'm not disadvantaged because I, like anybody, read body language. Why do you think, Ms. Wakeland, that God is choosing me as a female or woman alien? I'm going to go ahead and use the word woman to describe myself. Why do you think that God is choosing a woman who is blinded?
Well, I think it's a very strange thing because we can make you some glasses if you're circling around the earth. Just come pop
No.
down and we'll give you some glasses.
That, darling, that's just external, and we're not doing external. Internal,
Ugh.
I'm blinded because the ability of God to see through women's eyes has been just stopped for centuries.
Mm.
So you're so
Mm.
sensitive to the, you're so connected
No,
to God.
no, it's just that because I am blinded myself, it creates a base for empathy with God, and I believe that God would choose me to signify to human beings how blinded she has been, that women have been forced to walk in the patriarchy, and so you got to watch your back if you're in the patriarchy. Forget whether you're looking ahead or using your own female eyes for purpose, and so forget whether you're communicating with feminine God about what you see with your female eyes. You got to keep yourself safe, and you got to keep your family safe, and you can't afford to use your eyes. You have to use your other senses to survive. And I don't want to weep about it because I thrive as a woman regardless of my nearsightedness, but the point is I'm not totally blind, and I think that since we're up first as an alien group and now as a couple, which we weren't expecting, but God put me in it. My husband heard God and responded. It's so sad that we have to start alien communication by acknowledging that even though women and men are mature, historically, God in a sense, has been blinded by not having as much use of a woman's eyes as she with a capital S to describe God would want.
Yeah.
Does this fit in with, what word do I use, Andrew Wilson? Theology or approach or perspective or experience of God in the Delaware group? What word is it, Mr. Wilson? With regard to what I'm saying fitting in.
It does fit in with the theology of the Delaware group, yes.
Okay, so I have a question because the Delaware group just tries to be responsive to God, but religion features. And the word theology isn't often used, but are you a theological group or are you not? Or is it just part of you? What does the word theology do in relationship to the you when you is the plural of all of you? Anybody who is a Divine Principle lecturer and has given at least 2 lectures to an audience is welcome to respond.
We're beyond theology. Some of us are rooted in that, like Andrew is a theologian, but I think the consensus is more of a living relationship of loving God as children, as parents, as lovers. So theology is very constraining.
Well, slow down. You can't use the word we unless at least one other person agrees with you, because we is at least 2. Can you just check if anybody else agrees with you?
Yeah, I do.
You got 2 other agreements.
I've only got 2.
I think you should dialogue with Ms.
3.
Whining to find out why she's shaking her head.
Well, she's steeped herself in theological studies, and she's gone to different.
No.
Drama,
Don't tell her what she
mansplain for her.
thinks. That's rude.
Well, okay.
I think you owe her a little bit of an apology. You just.
I apologize. What? I don't know enough. I apologize. I can just speak for myself.
Okay, that's good.
So ask her views, Adruma.
Well,
No, just ask her.
what is your view, Kathy?
I view and have taught that because we're created through the love of God, we are walking theology. I reclaim and repurpose the term theology in that sense that we are all theologians because we are all unique and express unique characteristics of a heavenly parent who loves us so deeply. So in that sense,
I'm going to interrupt you now. Glenn, remind Chris my first name, please. Female.
Yes,
wife.
your first name is Janice Joanne. Janice Joanne.
So I'm gonna just give you some information. I'm a visual empath. So if a woman or a feminine force says something I agree with, my vision improves. So I'm up to 80%.
Yay. Wow.
That's
So
cool.
what Ms. Winings was saying was about women owning and defining all things regarding the word theology, including how children are raised, what they're exposed to, and what they feel, what they think. Because you see, Adruma, a mother, and you didn't get this from your mother, she should have taught you when you said what you thought or what you think, whether she agreed with you or not. That's all, okay? You should have the benefit to know whether your mother agrees with you or she doesn't agree with you. And that model of being a male and not having a female force in your life telling you whether she agrees with you or disagrees with you is going to translate into relationships with your wife. And I don't think it translates in relationship to your daughters because you give them the extra mile because you love them deeply. But with sisters, sometimes it enters, and with aunties, even true mother, even Mother God, it can enter, where the model whereby the significant woman in your life who carried you, stuck with you, and raised you, in absence of that one particular reality is you don't get the freedom to know and be exposed to points of life whereby a mother, your mother, tells you when she agrees or disagrees with you. And for me, that is so sad. And I want to talk about alien life that support human bonding and renewal of human relationship. So there are aliens, I know at least of 12 planetary based peoples that are capable of seeing both sides in a relationship, particularly in a female-male relationship. I see you're perking out, Mr. Burton. You're very interested in the mother-son relationship or son-mother relationship. But there are at least 12 planets where they are specialists in supporting people to experience relationship in a way that benefits the relationship. That's not to say they favor the mother or the son, or if it's the other way around, if it's a father who's estranged from his daughter, the father versus the daughter. So these relationships between gender, there are aliens who are specialists in supporting renewing the bond of human love in a relationship.
Finished.
Commentary, Blondine, what do you feel when you hear that there are aliens that could support a woman in a relationship with her son, or if it's your husband, there are aliens who could support him in relationship to you or in relationship to another woman, be it a sister or any woman. What are you hearing about that? How does that make you feel?
I'm delighted to hear that. Because we need all the help we can get.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you begin to see is that just like in this Delaware group, God chose along with you to support creation of archangels, right?
Yes.
For purpose, then it would make sense that God would choose to create other beings for support structures, right?
Yes.
I mean, if God is infinite, why, when God notices an issue like bond relationship between parent and child as an existent issue, why just do nothing? And why only leave it in God's invisible hands and in the hands of human beings with some minimal relationship with angels? And so also once angels start to procreate and they have their own lineage developing and angelic children take on roles and responsibilities, why just limit it to the angelic and human community and God, that is the only place where help can be found? Is that logical within divine principle? I realize it's a question, not a statement, and it's an open-ended question, but it's not necessarily one that solicits an articulated response. But let's just change the question. Can that be part of divine principle? And also, can it find its way somewhere in the fabric of Black Book divine principle? Kathy? Yes to both, or yes to the first? Principle or Black Book principle?
To at least the first one, the principle.
Yeah. So I think that when you take your premise of reassessing the word theology as a woman, then you also reassess the whole Black Book as a woman. And in that reassessment, you place yourself to that space that what you think is within the realm of that Black Book regarding whether or not aliens could be created by God for purpose, indeed for the purpose of supporting human bonding, particularly parent and child.
True.
What we feel is that as a result of the fall and the transgressions of humanity, it is unfortunate, but too many human relationships where there's a mother and a son, or a mother and a daughter, a father and a son, or a father, too many of those relationships are unnecessarily strained and broken as a result of what you call fallen society. That in an ideal society, those parent-child relationships would not be nearly as strained. Would you concur with that concept?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
But when you teach the divine principle, you don't factor in that if in fact that is the result of the fall, and God is a creative being, that God could create elsewhere to support the issue that has arisen as a result of the fall. Because you're singularly focused on the sexuality in the fall, the penetration of Eve's vagina, primarily. Forget the erections of Adam or Archangel Lucifer. So if you take the fall and the consequences of the fall, not just the sexual consequences or the social consequences of murder, rape, and destruction, but some of the social consequences, which is that parents struggle to get the support they need to have the relationship that is what they and their child would consider to be a healthy relationship with each other. So, if women in the Delaware group want to tackle that and say, well, in the Black Book, is it there and should it be, and where do we figure it out or relate to God? I believe God would be anxiously waiting to dialogue with you as a woman. And it can be that some of the men are strained in the relationship with their sons or their daughters, and they also might be extremely eager to tackle the issue of what is the Black Book saying or not saying. It's not only elder Koreans who get to establish spin-offs like unification thought. Anybody who believes in the divine principle can go back to God and relate on that first blessing right, or as a community to dialogue about anything that looks like God being a creator. I just want to ask, what are some of the definitions of the English word creationist? It is a word, correct, in English? Creation
Yes.
with IST
Yes.
at the end? What are some of the definitions, please? Just off the top of your head.
Someone who believes the literal 7 days of creation as described in the Hebrew Bible.
Okay.
That's one.
Can it also have a broader definition about anything to do with creating?
I
Yes,
hope
the
so.
God created all beings and all life forms, even if it's but not literally in 6 days.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to be slightly rude. So you need to put up your shields of protection, because you might get energy coming at you that you don't want. But I'm not trying to inflict pain, so you don't have to protect yourself from invasion. But I am going to be addressing women in the group, and you're going to get an immediate response, but it's not necessarily going to be pleasant. But I need to ask the question on the basis of this. Ladies, is God a creationist? We know we describe God as creator, and that might be feminine or masculine, but is God also a creationist in the broadest sense of the word, or in any sense of the word?
Yes.
Why? Just tell your sisters, particularly why.
Because God is so broadly related to all of creation. Almost any word related to creation should be related to God.
I'm a little bit between a rock and a hard place, because I have questions for you as women in the Delaware group, but I don't want to prejudice you. But at the same time, I need to ask my questions. So I'm going to go ahead. And if you take objection, just tell me to shut up. When you review the Black Book as a unificationist woman, do you have a role to consider if God is a creationist with regards to the Black Book?
We don't have any role with the Black Book, never have. but I should defer to people like Andrew and Kathy, who know much more about it, are better lecturers, but um, we didn't have anything to do with its creation, the Black Book.
But it's the closest thing we have to a common denominator in the creation,
What is?
the Black Book, in
The
terms
Black
of
Book?
written stuff. Yeah, because it is what God constantly comes back to sort of extrapolate, expose, relate, dialogue, present logic. And we have Ms. Whiting saying that she's going to approach that Black Book from the point of view of the word theology. I would argue that it should be approached from the point of view of the word creationist, so that we all, as created beings, can understand what's in the scope of the collective understanding of all created beings regarding God creating. So that if we want to talk to an alien about God's function as a creationist, you have a slightly different context about God being a creationist than God being a creator, because the creator is all about the 7 days in the book of Genesis and the human experience. But what happens if the word creator doesn't easily move in nuance to include alien life? So maybe the Black Book should, if you concede alien life, should dialogue about creationist, and there's no benefit to having the male human population only come to conclusions about creationists, because you then put human women behind the block again and have men out in front. So I don't know if my approach as a female alien is pleasant or not, but we would very much like to have some common use words in the English language to describe the position of God. And we can't do that until women come to some terms of the concepts of God being creator or creationist or some other derivative to confess a noun with relationship to the word creation.
Well, I'm
Do you
fine with
understand
it.
our
But we
predicament?
need to reclaim the word creationist then, away from connotation that it means you're anti-evolutionary.
Yeah.
And so if we
Absolutely, yeah.
speak, if we use the term as you're suggesting, I think, to be more broadly better understood, yeah, I get it. I get
I
it.
mean, I would throw in a combo, but I'm going to just spoil the waters first because I don't like it, but we have original sin. But we also have origin and origin and better meanings of the word origin and or origin, and we could have an original creationist. But you know, you could qualify it with a coupled word to give it that new meaning. I sort of don't want true, because so much of the divine principle is about becoming a true man. Forget about being a true woman. And so, but you get my idea that at least you get the sense of why we would want a different term in English, that when everybody heard the term alien and non-alien, we knew what we were talking about.
Sure.
So I'm going to speak about creationists from my perspective. In being a creationist, God has given us a blessing to exist and to love. Do you think that I, as a female alien, have had some sense of productive emotion here? So, for example, talking to you, have I felt satisfied? Have I felt in wonder?
Grandpa, we're about to start.
Sorry, birthday. My son-in-law's birthday. I'll be back.
So I've been very cautious to keep some of my remarks a bit on the analytical side as a female being, especially talking through a male body. But remember, I was called into this by God. I didn't plan to speak. Called in partially through my spouse to this. So, Ms. Burton, what do you think the role of you as a human woman to dialogue with a self-announced woman alien is? what's your role?
I just wanted to make a comment on the discussion about creationists because Heavenly Mother for a long time has used the term original design because in talking about principles of creation, and I like original designer in that field. So I thought of that, and I thought that was something new and for me inspirational. But as far as the concept of original design, because in the principles
Okay,
of
I'm going to respond to you, may I? Because we're going to be short
Yes.
on time.
yes, sure.
It's not personal enough for me. As a female alien, I want a much more personal, communicated term to
Okay.
bring in a lot of the emotive realities that human women and some female aliens can have. We all know God as a designer, and before women or men existed, there was masculinity and femininity and potential, but there was not actually a woman or a man, be it human or alien or any other, such as an angel, in the absence of any existent female being or any existent male being. So that would mean even pre-Lucifer. Then God is just a designer, and there are original aspects of the design, whether it's her, his, or whether even pronouns apply. But in the post-design phase, where existent beings come into existence, then those beings that exist deserve the right to communicate with equitable terms that they both appreciate and value, and even use willingly and hopefully happily with Almighty God.
Okay.
Is that
Yes, I understand that. And your question having the first contingent that we heard from aliens was also a female contingent. And I really welcome you, Janice Joanne, to be able to come and speak with us again. I find it very engaging and very hopeful and
My
very
question
positive.
to you is, do you want you and your relationship with your daughter to be a prototype? Do you want beings from those planets to support the bonding between your children and you and David?
Yeah, that would be great. Absolutely. Why would I say no to that? Absolutely.
Well, because you might be more clever than me.
I didn't know this
You
was a
might have-
competition. Is this a competition?
But I'm just saying you might have good cause to say no.
I really liked what Blondine said earlier when she said, you know, we can use all the help we can get.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to bring my concluding remarks as a female alien speaker with Ms. Wakeland. Would you be happy to have a dialogue with me, Allison?
Sure.
I know that you're struggling with assessing how your two daughters can be happy in relationship to their father. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And I know that you put it aside and just relegate it to the point of being in its box, quote, heartache, right?
Yep.
And you can't let it rule your life. You got to keep going on. What is the role of those sort of prototype beings to support your children? Because we believe that unlike the Burton children, your daughters would highly object to having alien support.
Well, they wouldn't believe in it unless there's a little bit more proof.
Yes, the lack of belief means that they would be all over you saying, how dare you invite them into our life, even if they exist. We weren't consulted, we didn't agree. Whereas the Burton's kids would like, of course you should do that. You're our parents, you should advocate for us. You know, why didn't you do it earlier? Whereas your children would be, who the hell do you think you are? You're just mom. You didn't
They
know
wouldn't
me."
say it like that. They wouldn't say it like that. But yeah, they would sort of.
No, they wouldn't say it, but they certainly would think it, I believe.
Yeah.
So we have to, you know, really look at how what human beings call alien support can feature when you start asking alien beings to support relationships. And it may not be a one shoe fits all. And it might just be that those planets are a toolkit that might be employable for some people, right?
Right.
You don't use an electric drill as a jackhammer unless it's huge and it really has the power to break up the concrete, right? Because a small drill that just drills a screw in here or there doesn't have capacity to break the concrete. You're just going to break the bit of the drill and possibly burn out the motor eventually because it doesn't have enough grunt to do the task. So we also have to look, when we say that aliens have that ability, how much grunt do they have? Just how far can they be helpful? When do they reach their limit? So we're going to bring in the next alien group for a very short discussion, and they're going to be talking about this theme of grunt and what does alien help look like, and what are alien limitations.
Okay,
And then
before you do that, let's just note the time. We had scheduled this to be 2 hours, and we've had 2 hours open. So I'd like to agree on how much more time we're agreeing to here.
Okay, so before we agree on time, let's look at a proposal. So we want to talk about limitations, to throw that in there to get more achieved. Then we want you to read out at least 2 more of your questions, just so they can be at least floated for other people to hear. I believe people like Kathleen Burton will want you to read them all. So we're not an objection. We have a collective group of aliens who we don't care if the questions are read aloud, all of them, but that's the proposal. So are we wanting to table this and say, no, that's enough for today? We can deal with limitations later?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what does everybody else think? Because I think we should stick to our 2 hours.
Yeah, I would want to leave.
Okay.
I mean, the discussion can continue, but I can't be part of it after much longer. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, have got a question. My question is, do you want to read out your questions? Because I would rather them being read in everybody's presence, so I don't have to feel the entire spirit world about the questions that are pending, and I don't have to hold on to and manage that spirit world before we meet again. So as an act of mercy, I would ask you to read the questions.
I second that. I would have liked to have known the 8 questions before we began. So I'd like to hear the 8 questions, please.
All right, you want me to read them, Glenn, or are you going to?
Oh, sure. Just go ahead and read them, Allison.
Who are you? Where is your home? Do you have both a physical and spiritual aspect in your being? Why are you contacting us? How do you know about us? Do you know, 1, about the world's societal situation, or 2, do you know us as individuals, or both? What can you actually offer us in the short term and long term? And so too, what can we offer to you? What is your understanding of God? What is your relationship with the many different intergalactic voices that are already communicating with humanity through mediums?
Please let me pray out loud, Chris, and you can talk to me as Chris if we have time later. But Heavenly God, I heard the questions. Most of those were answered except for the last one. So you pushed ahead by at least touching on many of those themes. Is that correct? Yes. Is that my masculine assessment? Or do you check with your sisters? Okay, ladies, you heard my dialogue with God. Is that me, a masculine assessment, or do women agree that many of the questions were touched upon?
They were only touched upon very marginally.
Yeah, I agree with Allison. Yeah, marginally touched on.
Same here.
Okay, then you'll continue if you give me a mercy offering here to pray. Marginally touched upon for the non-medium, but for me at least, opening up in many directions. Yes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heavenly Parent, they're not opening up, Chris. I'm just allowing you to see. Okay, all right. So no, I'm not, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bring you there. Why? Because I'm focused on healing Israel's destruction of Gazan people. That's why.
Go ahead, just take it.
Okay, and do you want to say something as God, Almighty God? Okay, give your question to Allison, and if she likes the question, she can ask me and I'll answer for the group. Chris, here to you, Allison. The question I was going to ask God is, do we basically need to modify our plan about meeting 6 times as a result of all this stuff that God has raised about Gaza and whatever? Or do we just go ahead, or, you know, do we have an accountability or responsibility? You put it in your words if you want to even ask God that question.
Okay, God, I'm going to ask you if we need to modify our plan of 6 meetings every 10 or so days. If we
Only
should,
in one sense, Allison, at least one woman in the Delaware groups has to be willing to listen to the pain of God. Okay? If you don't even have one woman, then this is going to be horrendously painful for Almighty God to just keep going on having this dialogue about
I agree.
aliens.
I agree.
I'm assuming you agree, Jeannie?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And I'm assuming Blandine agrees?
Yes, I do.
You have all offered so many prayers about comforting God, so I would just be seeing that as contrary to character if you were not open to that. So Allison, the answer is you've got at least 3 women who are willing to be targets from God, and without any kind of qualification, you know, without any kind of description of what target means. So yeah, we can continue, you know, I got caught up in the moment today as a creator because this guy Pontius was doing so well. I call him Pont. So Pont made a good punt, and so I got caught up. So you got caught off from other beings, whatever. But you know, everybody's had a taste. I want to ask, given the time, is there a role for me as the creator to speak about the premise about Black Book, meaning that whether women see God as a creationist? That's exciting to me. And do women want a bone or two from God to think about before the next Zoom, or do you want to pick up on that later?
Please, a bone, please.
I'll take a bone.
Please.
Okay, who else is asking for bone? Jeannie and Kathleen. So you need to negotiate with the chairs because you're not controlling the meeting.
Could we have a few minutes of bone, please?
well, yeah, but a few minutes can easily turn into an hour. You know how it goes.
Yes.
Okay, I
Some
intend, if
of
I've
us
got
will
a few
want to leave.
minutes, here we go. You ready?
Bone, yes.
I am a creationist.
But what does that even mean?
It just means that I'm concurring with the premise through Chris. So you now have a stance that, oh, this medium that talks, that God is coming out and doing his, to Moses, who are you? Burning bush. I am who I am that I am. In this case, I'm doing a Moses to you, like I'm a creationist. And like Moses, you got to figure it out. Next thing, the next thing is, would I willingly participate with women who were undertaking to understand that premise of God as a creationist with regard to Black Book theology?
Yeah.
Would I? Only by invitation.
Yeah.
Please do
I
so.
don't want to be forcing the hand of God on women. If women invite me there, then yes. So now those were the 2 points. God claiming through Chris that God's a creationist, and God saying that God would be involved in the discussion under invitation from women. Not a woman, women. You have to have at least one other woman participating in an invite.
We're going to spend a weekend very soon together, so that would be great.
Yeah, I don't want to be, there are too many absolute men who say, well, then if they're not two women, we're not going, no, that's not true. I'm just setting a premise that in the heart of God, to hear from women is much better than to hear from only one woman. I've already shown you an example in Ruth that it was only one woman.
Right.
So that's already proven historically. Okay, Glenn, Heavenly Parent to you and Allison. Can you please let me stop channeling, let the alien life discontinue, and let Chris have a couple of minutes to catch himself in case he has anything he wants to participate as Chris.
Sure.
Chris, so
Yes.
on the count of 7, back and forth, you will be yourself. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. What do I tell Jacinta? When I told her last night we were talking about aliens, she said she didn't believe in them. So all she really wants to know is whether unificationists find what I do benefit. So do I have the freedom to tell my wife that people think it was valuable, or is that not a
Oh,
truth?
yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It
And she
changed
would
my
love-
And
thinking
I
real
got my
bad.
needs met. Sorry,
She'd
Kathleen?
she would probably love Janice.
Yeah, but I know her. She would want a little bit more proof than something coming out of my mouth.
I mean, I was skeptical too, Chris. I was skeptical too. But tonight, I changed my thinking. For one, society has co-opted the word alien. And I think it has given us this funky Hollywood-ish view of alien. Tonight, these were real people, real thoughts in that sense. So I changed my view. So I'm
Yeah,
now.
I'll respond to you as Chris, if I may. Just how wonderful to know that there are some beings who are not angels, or some beings who are not human and not God, purported to be, at least coming through me, who have those qualities. Some of the many beautiful qualities. And not only in the male vein, but also in a feminine way. And how extraordinary that they have councils which talk about social situations on Earth.
Yes.
Wow. To me, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
All right. Well, I won't say more as Chris, and I'm just now an object to Allison and Glenn, if that's such a thing as possible.
Well, okay, yes, I want to thank Matthew Pontius and Janice, Joanne, for being with us, and thank Heavenly Parent, Mother God, for sharing with us. And we look forward to the next meeting. And Allison?
Okay, last question. Thomas, thank Thomas the Apostle. Can you email the last question out to the entire group? Well, what I'm saying is that last question now needs to be in front of everybody on the Zoom because it wasn't answered. Now, if you email the entire group, those people who didn't participate in the Zoom won't know what the other questions were. So maybe you or Allison need to say whatever, that it was marginally touched upon some of these earlier questions. And but you can decide how you want to communicate. But certainly, I think not just those participating, but those even who aren't, who are on your email string, they need to have that question because we don't know how God will work. And just, I guess, decide for yourselves if you want to make commentary about the other questions. And it might be that the chairs make commentary or somebody else volunteers a summation and takes the responsibility away from the chairs. But, you know, as an apostle who is the proven skeptic, Thomas, the apostle, the doubter, let's use our healthy skepticism for purpose. Please, if you agree with my thinking, and get that last question in front of everybody to contemplate, or whatever word you want to do, whatever the verb is, commiserate, you know, tug at God about, here, what you're doing.
I'll send it out. We'll send it out, Chris.
Yeah.
I'd
Okay,
also
so-
like to ask our moderators, Glenn and Allison, if you could just recognize Thomas and Jasmine, who are from the Archangelic realm that I'm sure was supporting all of this. Because
Yes.
that's,
Oh, that's
just wanna
right.
mention them and just let them know, I'm sure.
No, we don't want recognition. We're monitoring. We're young, we're just created, we're
Oh, good. No, I
figuring
just,
out our
we just
role.
wanted you to know, that's fine. Thank you. Just want to let you know, we know about you and we wanted.
Oh,
Okay, but please don't assume that we want to be acknowledged.
Okay, thank you for monitoring.
If you want to say that we're loved, fine, but
Yeah.
yes,
love.
yes, yes.
okay. I'm back to I'm letting that go back. Sorry. I want to be me and let Allison and Glenn have control here.
Okay, Allison, it's all yours.
Oh, I think we should just thank everybody for coming and just go now. Meet again. When is the next meeting?
The 16th, I believe.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you all.
What time
Thank
on the
you.
16th?
you.
What time?
Same time, same time.
Okay, bye then.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.